أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وبالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن ربكم الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في 6 أيام ثم استوى على العرش يغشي الليل النهار يطلبه حثيثا والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره ألا له الخلق والأمر تبارك الله رب العالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is the third majlis in this series of majalis. And for the past 2 nights, I've been reciting this very ayat from Surah Araf, ayat number 54, under the discussion and the topic that we have chosen for this year's Majalis-e-Aza, which is the role of A'imma Ma'sumin in the revival of religion. Naqsh A'imma Dar Ahyaye Deen. And the reason for choosing this ayah, because it's all encompassing to the points that, inshallah, we want to share in the nights to come. I haven't been able to explain the words of this ayat that I have recited. Usually, the way I speak, and those of you who know that I try to make sure that we understand the ayat that I have chosen, and there's a reason and the maqsad behind it. And it's not just randomly chosen to address one thing or another. So therefore, when we look at in-depth an analysis of this ayah, we find from the very beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses 2 words, 2 of His names for Himself. He said, Inna rabbakumullahu alladhi. In fact, alladhi is also referring toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, your Rabb, the one who's Allah, the one who did what? خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي 6 أَيَّامٍ. Allah, who's your Rabb, the one who's Khaliq of Samawat and Ard, in 6 phases, as we mentioned it last night. ثُمَّ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى. And then He established Himself on His throne. Up until this point, there's a lot of discussion that has to be explained, but growing up in this maktab, we know at least this much, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have body parts. And therefore, when Allah says that He's situated on the throne, does not mean a throne or a minbar, if you can understand the arsh of the kings and different leaders and kursi. That's not what it means. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alal arsh istawa, He's sitting And I'll have to use this example so that our youngsters can understand that when I'm sitting on this minbar and when our elderly are sitting on the chairs, that means they have occupied it. I have occupied this minbar. Now, of course, there's more room for someone else to come and join me, but right now you have allotted this minbar to me only. Maulana, it's yours for the next half hour, 45 minutes for you to speak to us, and therefore no one else will come on this minbar. Just like the chairs that you have occupied, there's only enough room for one person. You won't go ahead and give room to another person because there are other chairs that are also next. So when someone is occupying something, that means what? They are completely in control of it, right? This minbar, right now I'm running it, I'm sitting on top of it, no one else is on it, just like you're sitting on those chairs, and you have occupied it and you have complete control over it. When Allah says, ثُمَّ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى, He's merely referring to the fact that He has complete control of this universe. When He created the heavens and the earth in 6 phases, remember we talked about the word yawm is not opposite of night. Urdu mein shayad hum kahin din aur raat, day and night, but the word yawm, which might be used for day, is not the opposite of night. The day and night is layl wa nahar, as the ayat continues and tells us, yughshil layla nahar, that the night and the day, they are rapidly chasing one another. And then the ayah continues, وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ وَالنُّجُومَ مُسَخَّرَاتٍ بِأَمْرِهِ. The sun or the suns if you want to call it, the moon or the moons, and the stars, the nujum, are all under the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You musakharat bi amrihi. And then if this wasn't enough of understanding, this was seal on top of all of this. Allah, by God. And when the word Allah is used, it is to gain the attention of the listener. If you weren't paying attention, Allah, now you will pay attention. When you say, Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, right? Allah, lest. He says, lahul khalq wa lahul amr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Him belongs all the khilqat, to Him belongs all the umur. And then He ends it by saying, Tabarakallahu Rabbul Alameen. Glory to the Lord, who is the Lord of all of the universe. Of course, it's a very extensive ayah which requires understanding of every single word. But of course, we won't have time to get in the every single word. Inshallah, relying on your knowledge and understanding of ayat of Quran, inshallah, I'll move quickly. 2 words that are worth mentioning in the beginning are the word Allah and the word Rabb. Allah is coming from the root al-ilah. The word ilah, barwazne kitab, ilahun kitabun, from alaha ya'lahu. And the same with the word kitab is in the meaning of maktub, that which is written. So when you hold up a kitab, kitab is what? That which is already written. Allah or alaha is also in the meaning of maluh, which means ma'bud, which means someone whose ita'at is obligatory. So there are 2 meanings of the word ilah that we receive. One, abada ya'budu, and the second one is the one whose ita'at is obligatory upon us. So 2 things that are derived from the word ilah. One is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ma'bud and no one else is the ma'bud. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is someone whose ita'at is done. That's as far as the word Allah is concerned. It's lafz jalala. I won't go in further details of it. Second word that we need to understand is the word Rabb. Allah uses the word Rabb over here. When we look at, many people have not understood the word Rabb. Even when we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen so many times in every single day, we have not understood the word Rabb in its actual meaning. Raghib in his book Mufradat, he mentions this translation for the Rabb. He says the word Rabb is something, ar-Rabbu fil asli at-tarbiyah. The word Rab in actuality means tarbiyat. We all know the word tarbiyat in Urdu, but I'll explain it to the youngsters. The concept of tarbiyat, as he mentions, huwa insha'u shay halan fahalan. It is to upbring someone or something from one condition to another condition. So as parents would raise their kids, and constantly this parwarish is being done, this nurturing is being done, this upbringing and rearing is being done, that is called tarbiyat. Now tarbiyat is very important. And therefore we always emphasize on the fact that ta'aleem by itself is not enough. Ta'aleem along with tarbiyat makes a complete package. There are many people who might be educated but lack tarbiyat. As in Farsi, they use the word bitarbiyat. There's someone who's, does not have good morals, someone who does not respect the elders, someone who does not, is a bitarbiyat. This person does not have any tarbiyat. That means he has not been raised properly. He has not been nurtured properly and reared properly. So that's the translation of the word tarbiyat. When it comes to the word Allah, and when it comes to the word Rabb, there are a few questions in Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala poses in front of those who associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How dare you associate partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He uses, these are some ayat which is called ayat, these are challenging ayat. You've heard the ayat of challenging ayat in reference to Quran. That you can't produce a Quran like this, you can't produce a chapter like this, you can't even produce one single ayat like this. Now look at this challenge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is posing toward those who are idol worshippers. What does he say? He says in the first step, he says, Aruni mada khalaqu min al-ardi am lahum shirkun fis samawat. These things that you're worshipping, that you're considering to be your ma'bud, you're worshipping and you're prostrating in front of, show me what they have created. Do they have any partnership in creating the heavens and the earth? For example, this idara was created and made a long time ago. There were many people that were involved, from the concept, from construction, from designing, from materials. Many different forces came together for the construction of this idara, for example. Any small, big or large institution requires many different sides to come together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking this question. These that you worship, are they sharik in the creation of the earth and the skies and the heavens? That was the initial thought. Of course, the response was no. And then Allah raised the bar a little bit. He said, أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ كَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Now that you understood that no one is sharik in the creation of the heavens and the earth, the second question that Allah poses to them is what? أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ وَلَمْ وَكَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ. The one who creates and the one who does not create. Are they equal? Sort of like, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Those who have knowledge and those who do not have knowledge, are they equal? That which is dark and that which is nur, are they equal? That which is, there are many such examples that Quran has given as far as those who are basiran, those who cannot see, are they equal? Those who possess knowledge, those who don't possess knowledge, are they equal? Here, because he's talking about himself, he says what? Those who did not create and the one who created, are they equal? And of course, at the second level also, the response was unanimous, and this is no. Those who create and those who do not create cannot be equal. And then this was the punchline towards the end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَن يَخْلُقُوا ذُبَابًا وَلَوِ اجْتَمِعُوا لَهُ. Those who call upon someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these idols that you worship, if all of your gods got together, they will not be able to create a fly. Let alone the mysteries of this world that humans are still waiting and working to explore, discoveries that are still need to be made, and all the intricacies of this human's bodies that were still really mind-boggling for us to even fathom and comprehend. Let alone those things. He says, you're not even able to create a small fly. a fly which functions, has its entire functionality, you're unable to create that. These idols that you're worshipping. So from this aspect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes His khaliqiyat. Here I understand that you would be saying as to how does that relate to our topic. These istilahat have to be understood. Similarly, the word Rabb, which I said before, is misunderstood because the word Rabb could be used for people as well. For example, you and I could be called Rabb. But whenever you and I are called Rabb, we are associating ourselves with something else. In Arabic, it's called Muzaf, Muzaf ilayh. That means Rabbul Bayt. Person who's head of the house, you can call him Rabbul Bayt. He's the Rabb of the house. Or for example, those who were responsible for taking care of the Kaaba, or Hazrat Abdul Muttalib in that famous discussion of his when he had with Abraha. He went up to Abraha and he said, what? Please return my camels. He said, I'm really disappointed in you. I thought you were a man of honor. You would stand up and fight for your house of, the Kaaba, which he had come to destroy. He said, I am the Rabb of my ibil, my camels. I'm the Rabb of my camels. That means I'm the owner. So here the word Rabb is also in the meaning of ownership. He said, I'm the owner of my camels. And the house has its own Rabb. House will be protected by the Rabb that has created this house, the one who this house belongs to. So of course, the story, you know how Abraha was destroyed. But the word Rabb could be used for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you and I, we could be Rabbul Bayt, we could be Rabbul Dujaj, Rabbul Ibil. All of these could be our attributes. But the difference is, when you use the word Rabb mutlaqan, absolutely without any association, it is for the sake of Allah. It's only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the word Rabb is used absolutely without anything associated with it, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ballatun tayyibatun Rabbun Ghafoor, as the ayat of Quran says. The tayyib house, the city which is tayyib or pak or pakiza, and the Rabb who's Ghafoor. This is used without any conditions associated with. Here we see that throughout the history, and I'll quote two stories for you. One from the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi wasalam, and second from the story of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi wasalam. The reason I chose these stories because many of the things about these stories we already know. So it'll be helpful for us to just go through the meaning of the story. We see that a lot of time, whenever the prophets of Allah, they came and they spoke about the wahdaniyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the kuffar, the idol worshippers, they didn't have any issue with the khaliqiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever they were asked, who is the creator? They said, Allah. Allah is the creator. They never said, our idols created. No, these are the idols we've created with our own hands. They can't create. Creator is Allah. Khaliq is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the response. La yaqulun Allah. They will all respond by saying that Allah is the Khaliq. You know where the problem was with these people? The problem with these people was with rububiyat. They did not have any issue with the khaliqiyat, but they associated rububiyat with other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I thought it was important for us to explain the two concepts. Why? The one rububiyat also refers to the one in whose hands is tarbiyat, in whose hands is tadbir, in whose hands is the planning. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the planner. He's the one who stipulated the laws and the ahkam. No one else stipulates the ahkam. I remember this yesterday when we spoke, that even the noble prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said what? I did not come to create the laws or change the laws. This is not something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked me to do, nor have I done it. Yes, but Quran emphasizes on the fact that whatever Prophet gave you, take it. Whatever he stopped you from doing, leave it. Why? Because all the ahkam came through Rasulullah. So you have to listen to him. People thought that Rasulullah is the one who's creating the laws. No, Allah created the laws, gave it to Rasul, and through Rasul it reached us. There had to be a means. And then people worry about the concept of shafa'at. If Allah wanted, He could have directly given us the laws, couldn't He? If He wanted, He could have easily given every single one of us the laws without the means of Rasulullah. Allah chooses the means to come to us. Why should we remove this means in between and go directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You want to reach Allah, you say, we don't need. What is this Ya Ali Madad that you say? Why do you say Ya Rasulullah? Why do you say Ya Hussein or Ya Ali Madad? Ask directly from Allah, Ya Allah. And we do ask directly from Allah. All of our du'as that are taught by Masumeen are teaching us to ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have a better chance of receiving something if we go through a source which is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah wants to teach us something, He comes through a connection while He was more than capable of inculcating this knowledge to us, inspiring, giving us this knowledge without any means. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose that this is the way I want to send this information to you. So that this information remains what? Safe and secure. In all these companies these days, they spend millions of dollars from the data to be breached, right? So that their data is not breached. They ask these companies to protect their data. While Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to send this is the same reason. So that the deen and ulum-e-deen are not distorted. It comes from a source which is infallible, and it is spread through the source and sources which are infallible. And so that nobody tampers with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent. So all these people, they did not have issue with the khaliqiyyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they rather had issue with the rububiyyat. They associated others to be arbab. Remember yesterday the example that I gave? That Allah calls the rahib and He calls the leaders of the Jews and the leaders of the Christians to be arbab. While the son of Hatim Tai said to Rasulullah, they did not. We don't worship them. He said, yeah, you don't worship them, but you received the knowledge through them. They were the ones changing the halal of Allah into haram and haram of Allah into halal. So you call them to be arbab. Quran calls them to be arbab, Rabb. Unfortunately, some of us are doing the same thing. That while the fadail of Ahlul Bayt are at the peak, and nothing could be more of a fadilat of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam than that his zat is superior to all the Anbiya except Rasulullah. Could there be any bigger fadilat for Ali? That his zat is above all the Anbiya except Rasulullah, of course. Because even Ali calls himself to be Abdun min Abid Rasulullah, right? That how Rasulullah did his tarbiyat, for example. But he's above all the Anbiya, there's no doubt about that in Maktab Tashayyo, as far as the aqaid are concerned. And this is proven through riwayat. And even, I'll give you some examples. You've all heard the hadith which says, Man arada an yanzura ila Adama fi ilmihi, wa Nuhan fi hilmihi, wa Musa fi haybatihi. And many other Anbiya are mentioned in this hadith. فَلْيَنْظُرْ إِلَى وَجْهِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. If you want to look at the ilm of Adam, if you want to look at the hilm of Ibrahim and Nuh, if you want to look at the haybat of Musa, and this of other Nabi, then look no further than the wajh and the face of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because you'll find all of those sifat combined in one personality, and that is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat beji Muhammad wa alam. And someone might say, well, you're exaggerating when it comes to how do you go ahead and make Ali or Ali to be superior to Anbiya? Question is, when the Imam of our time returns, when he returns, along with him will return Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. Usually, even when we have a few ulama gather, when it comes for the time of salat, who leads the salat? The one who's more senior. Who will lead at the time when Imam Zamana returns with Hazrat Isa? Imam Zamana will be leading. That will also prove those who are doubting as far as the fadilat of Ma'sumin is concerned. But to take them to the level of rububiyat as these groups of people in the time of Hazrat Musa and Hazrat Ibrahim were doing, that's where the problem arises. Making Ma'sumin and creating them to be arbab and giving them this rububiyat. You say, well, who does that? You find that they'll say, well, everything is in their hands and nothing is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now. Allah is resting. Summa alal arshi istawa. That means Allah situated himself onto this throne. I recited the ayat for you, and now Allah is resting. And everything is in the hand of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ali. They're the ones who will decide. They're the ones who are going to do tadbir, planning. Rububiyat is in their hands. And if you try to correct these aqaid, you're given the title of muqassir. And they start questioning your nasab. That this person's nasab is messed up. Someone is from the al of Rasulullah, Sayyid. And then who's correcting your aqaid, you go ahead and say, well, their nasab is messed up. Even though they're trying to correct that false belief of yours. And then when they correct it, you're given the title as your muqassir. No. They're declining the rightful fadail of Ali. No, we're not. If you don't recite shahadat al-thalisa in namaz, that means you don't believe in the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I've heard that. You don't recite the shahadat al-thalisa in namaz, that means you don't believe in the wilayat of Ali. Wow, where's that coming from? And then the correction, the one who corrects, they're labeled with all of these different things. So here we need to be very careful. This is connected with what people were doing at that time. They knew khaliqiyat was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rububiyat was given to others, those who were arbab upon them. In our madhab, rububiyat was given to Ma'sumin, but Ma'sumin were also in some places made to be Khaliq. Unfortunately. These are the aqaid which are being mentioned. This is the reason why the hadith of the Holy Prophet, in which he said that if I did not have the fear of people doing the same what they did to Hazrat Isa ibn Maryam, I would have mentioned the fadail of Ali ibn Abi Talib so much that people, wherever Ali would walk by, people will pick up the sand from beneath his feet as a tabarruk and tamassuk. This is when Rasulullah says that I have hidden the fadail of Ali. Imagine if he had released the fadail of Ali ibn Abi Talib, what would people have done? He gave the reason. He said, if I did not fear what they will do the same what they did to Isa ibn Maryam. What did they do to Isa? Alayhi salatu wasalam. Hazrat Isa is God, son of God. Why? Because he creates. He gives life. Hazrat Isa would go ahead and bring dead back to life again. Ma'sumin can do that as well. They have the ability, they have the karamat. But the fact of the matter is, this karamat and this ability is not independent. This karamat and this ability is through the dependency of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From that aspect, yes, it is indeed a great fadilat. So when you go ahead and mention these things, say, well, Maulana, don't consider Ali to be like you either. No, we're not. How can Ali be like us? Ali is masoom. Ali is the possessor of ismat and taharat. How can we be like Ali? Ali's manzilat is beyond our comprehension. And that is the reason Rasulullah is mentioning these fadail about Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's why Rasul said, Ibn Abbas actually says it, that we were sitting one day and with Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen walked in. He said when Ali walked in, Rasulullah got up from his place. He hugged him. He kissed him between his eyes. And he sat him down next to himself. We asked Rasulullah, Rasulullah, you love him? Rasulullah said, why should I not love him? Every Nabi has their progeny from themselves. My progeny continues through Ali ibn Abi Talib. So why should I not love him? So Rasulullah gave reasons for the maqam and the manzilat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. There's no need to debate over that. But to go ahead and make them to be a Rabb is where we're going to go ahead and draw a line. That is mixing up and messing up with the true aqaid of madhab tashayyu. So I'll give you two examples of the two stories that I mentioned. One, the waqiyah of Hazrat Musa and Hazrat Harun alayhi wasalam. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends idhaba ila Fir'aun. Both of you go to Fir'aun. Why? Innahu tagha. Because he's done tughyan, he's gone rebellion. But faqula qawlan layyana. But when you speak to him, this is your arch enemy. This is your biggest enemy. You speak to him qawlan layyana, in a very lenient voice. Oh Allah, this is my enemy. I'm going to speak to my enemy in a very nice and mellow tone. He said, yes. Why? لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. It is possible that he might remind himself, or he may remember, or he may get some tadakkur, and he might fear. And he comes back to the right path. But of course, he had already done tughyan. Fir'aun, when he saw all the signs that Hazrat Musa had brought, and Hazrat Harun had brought, he became scared. He was terrified. فَأَرَاهُ الْآيَةَ الْكُبْرَى. When he saw all those signs, this is in Surah Nazi'at, فَكَذَّبَ وَعَصَى ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ يَسْعَى فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. He got scared. He got terrified. He saw all these signs that Hazrat Musa had brought. जिसको उर्दू में हम कहते हैं भौकला गया, समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या करना है. He went back, forth, and then he called a great ijtima. When all the people gathered, what did he say? Ana rabbukumul a'la. He did not say ana khaliqukumul a'la. Ana Allah. Ana khaliq. He didn't say any of those things. He said ana rabbukumul a'la. I am your biggest Rabb, because all the planning is in my hand. I get to choose the laws for you. I get to make laws for you. I get to take your life. I get to give you hayat if I want to. This is all in my hand because you're my slaves. I am the owner of Mulk Misr, as the later on ayat continue. I'm the one who's providing water through Nile and the other things that you're gaining. This is my land. Everything that grows on it is mine. You are being provided with that. So I have this raziqiyat in it as well. But he did not say, I am the khaliq, because he knows he's not. The debate was over where? As far as the rububiyat is concerned. After all this guftugu, Fir'aun then changes the discussion. He says, if nothing is working, Hazrat Musa is not going to listen to me, and there's not going to be any mukalima between us. And he was fearful that people might be convinced by the proof that Hazrat Musa has brought. He might influence them. With that fear, what happens? When you're unable to fight, when you're unable to provide logical proofs, what happens? Usually there's a fist fight. That's the last resort. So Fir'aun does what? He calls upon his hired magicians. Come, show your magic and defeat Musa. Hazrat Musa said, go ahead. They throw their ropes, deceiving people as if they were serpents. Hazrat Musa throws his asa. Of course, the asa of Hazrat Musa turns into a biggest serpent and gallops all of these, eats all of these, devours all of these ropes. Nothing remained. Right away, these magicians, what do they say? فَأُلْقِيَ السَّحْرَةُ سُجَّدًا قَالُوا. All of these magicians, they fell into sajda and they said what? آمَنَّا بِرَبِّ هَارُونَ وَمُوسَى. We bring iman onto the Rabb of Harun and Musa. The Rabb of Harun and Musa. We bring iman. Even here the discussion is about the Rabb of Harun and Musa. Because they've seen it. What we were doing was just deceiving people, illusion. What Musa ﷺ did was the reality. And there was no way. You know who was called Rafidi? You hear this word Rafidi a lot, right? Shias are called Rafidi. Those who reject. Rafals means to reject. So Shias are given the title of Rafidi, rejectors. You know who was called Rafidi initially? These magicians who brought Iman onto Hazrat Musa and Hazrat Harun and the Rabb of Hazrat Musa and Harun. So if that is the purpose of calling us Rafidi, then yeah, sure, go ahead and call us Rafidi. Why? Because we do reject the false deities and the false gods anyone tries to impose upon us. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. The rest of the story is with you, so I won't go in that. Second is the story of Hazrat Ibrahim, as I promised. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the story of Hazrat Ibrahim. Alam tara ila alladhi hajja Ibrahim. Have you not seen how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Hazrat Ibrahim to go ahead and make these qawaneen and these rules and these laws? Hazrat Ibrahim came and he said, Allah is the one who decides what laws to be implemented. Why? Because He's the one who gives life and death. What did Namrud say to him? Namrud said to him that, Ana uhyi wa umit. I can give life and I can give death. That's not the big deal. You're talking about life and death? Ana uhyi wa umit. I can do that too. And of course, the example that he had given was the person who was on death row in his prison. He said, release him. See, I gave life. And the innocent person walking on the streets, he grabbed him and he killed him. See, I gave him death. So life and death is in my hand. Now when Hazrat Ibrahim is dealing with people of that mentality, he had to come up with something bigger than that. Khaliqiyat, you're trying to prove that you give life and death? Okay, simple. My Rabb, Ibrahim said to him, Ya'ati bishamse min al-mashriqi fa'ati biha min al-maghrib. My Rabb brings the sun from Mashriq, you go ahead and bring it from Maghrib. You're calling yourself to be a Rabb? You're the one who gives life and death? My Rabb brings the sun from Mashriq, from the east, you go ahead and bring it from the west, if that's possible for you. So that was the first defeat that Namrud had faced. This was the first muqabila of Hazrat Ibrahim. Second mahaz that Hazrat Ibrahim is facing, people who are worshipping the sun, the moon, and the stars. So Hazrat Ibrahim waited for the night time. When the biggest of the stars came up, Hazrat Ibrahim said, فَلَمَّا رَأَلْ. When he saw this star, he said, هَذَا Rabbi. This is my Rabb. Going along with the people, because all these people were gathered, they were saying, this is our Rabb. Hazrat Ibrahim walked along with them. Sometimes you have to get along with the people in order to convince them of something bigger. He came along with the people. This is my Rabb. But then as soon as the morning time came, the star was gone. He said, that which disappears cannot be my Rabb. Then the daytime came, the sun rose, sun was bigger than all the stars. He said, Hadha Rabbi, because this is more Roshan and illuminated. But then when the sun set in the evening, he said, my Rabb cannot be the one who sets like this. Rather, the one who is the setter of the sun. The one who's the one who makes the sun rise, and the one who makes the sun go down is the one that I worship, and that is my Rabb. So he was using the conscience of the people to awaken them as far as what their beliefs were. Some believed in him. This was the second muqabala of Hazrat Ibrahim. Third was with his own family, to which some people say that it was his father. It cannot be his father. It was his uncle, Adar, as mentioned in Quran. He came up to him and he says, قال لأبيه وقومه ما هذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها آكفون. What are these idols that you are bowing in front of? Look at the way Hazrat Ibrahim is working. Because these people thought they provide. These idols are providing. Look at the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that even when a person is bowing in front of an idol, Allah still fulfills the dua of that individual. That person thinks that this idol is the one providing for me, while it is the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is coming down upon him. I'm worshipping a wood, Allah is fulfilling my hajat. So of course, this person is going to think that this wood is something which is giving me what it has given to me. So Hazrat Ibrahim is awakening their conscience. Ma hadhihi tamasil allati antum laha akifun. What are these idols that you are bowing in front of and prostrating to? So that we found our forefathers, they were worshipping, they were the ones bowing in front of it, so we do the same thing. What did Hazrat Ibrahim do? He went and he broke all of them. Right? He went, he said, well, these people are not going to understand. He broke all of them. فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا. He destroyed all of them. But he left the big one standing. When he left the big one standing, they came the next day. He said, مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا. Who did this to our lords? Who is the one who did this to our lords? Destroyed them. Someone said, سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرَاهِيم. He said, we've heard of a fata. So here we understand the title of fata is given to someone who breaks the idols. The one who broke the idols in the house of Allah in Ka'batullah was also given the same title, La fata illa Ali. Here in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Hazrat Ibrahim to be what? Fata as well. He says that we've heard of a fata, yadhkuruhum yuqalu lahu Ibrahim. There's a person whom they call Ibrahim. He's the one who's done it. They bring him. When they brought Hazrat Ibrahim, what did he do? Did he deny he didn't do it? He said, ask the big one. They all laughed. He said, well, they couldn't speak. He said, well, when this idol can't even defend itself and speak for itself, how is it going to go ahead and stand up for you and speak for you? This is how Hazrat Ibrahim brought these people out of considering these to be their arbab and their rab. Of course, they had no arguments left. The same way Hazrat Musa faced the aggression from Fir'aun, Hazrat Ibrahim is facing the aggression from these people and Nimrud. They said, what? Build the fire and throw Ibrahim into it. And when they flung Hazrat Ibrahim into the fire, of course, he lands into this fire, and of course, fire's duty is to burn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to the fire by saying, Ya naro, kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. O fire, be cool and sound to Ibrahim. आग का काम है जलाना, मगर आग का तसव्वुर जो हमारे जहन में है, अल्लाह खालिक है, अल्लाह रब है, वो चाहे तो आग की इस तासीर को भी हटा सकता है. उसने आग की तासीर को हटा दिया, आग ने नहीं जलाया. इसे या नारुकूनी बर्दन व सलामा अला इब्राहीम. That Hazrat Ibrahim was saved from over there. Now that the discussion of nar has come, I want to draw your attention towards the end, and I will bring inshallah towards the end a hadith from the Holy Prophet in regards to Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat bi Muhammad wa Rasulullah said, now keep nar in your perspective, in your minds. Rasulullah said, Hubbu aliyin ya'kulu sayyi'ati kama ta'kulu nar al-hatab. The love of Ali burns the sins the same way the fire burns the wood. You put woods into fire, what happens? Who wins? The fire will prevail. The woods will be gone. There'll be nothing but ashes. Nothing of the wood would remain. Similarly, if you have the love and the hub of Ali in your hearts, then the sayyi'at and the sins that you may have accumulated, they will burn away. Just imagine, just having the love of Ali. If you actually believed and followed what Ali ibn Abi Talib had said, then imagine your status. This is merely just having the love, because there are many who love Ali. They don't necessarily believe in him. Many of these non-Muslims who have studied Amirul Mu'mineen, they love him. Many of the Hindu shu'ara, they have spoken a great deal about Amirul Mu'mineen, but not necessarily do they follow him. So merely loving Ali can burn your sins away. Imagine if you actually followed him. Now there are four possible aspects of everything. So there's a wujud khariji, the physical wujud of something, wujud zehni, there's wujud lafzi, and there's wujud maktubi. big words, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. This mimbar, right here, there's wujud khariji, the existence of this mimbar, the physical, actual body of this mimbar, right? This is the wujud khariji. You can see it, you can sit on it. But right now I'm sitting on it. So you have to pay attention and listen to me. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this mimbar, you can feel it. This is the wujud khariji of the mimbar. Wujud zahni, what can you do? You can imagine the mimbar in Masjid Ali or Mahfil, as I mentioned last night about Mahfil as well. Or you can imagine the mimbar in Haram of Imam Hussain. You can imagine the mimbar in Masjid al-Nabawi. You can imagine, right? You can bring it into your zahn. It's easy. Third, wujud lafzi. The word mimbar, the lafz of mimbar. Or maktubi, the one which is written. So you write down, this is mimbar, for example. Not that anyone else has any doubts that this is not a mimbar, but you can write it down. This example is given for a purpose, but there's a better example, water. Wujud khariji of the water is, the different types of bodies of water that exist. You have the river, you have the sea, you have, swimming pool, wherever there's water, rainwater. And then you can imagine Niagara Falls in your mind. Borders are closed, you can't go there anymore, or maybe they're open now. So you can imagine Niagara Falls in your minds. That's also water. You can speak and you can read and you can utter the word water, or you can write the word water. My question, which one of these four aspects are going to quench your thirst? Wujud zahni, lafzi, maktubi, or wujud khariji? The physical water is the one which will quench your thirst, right? You can say water 100 times, it will not quench your thirst. You can write water 100 times, it will not quench your thirst. You can say, you can write, you can imagine, but it will not quench your thirst. That which will satiate you is the water right here. Now this is, as far as all the things are concerned, they have four possible aspects. But usually only one aspect of each thing is beneficial. But this is not the case with Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. When Rasulullah said, Hubbu aliyin ya'akulu sayyi'at, kama the love of Ali ya'akulu say kama ta'akulu nar al-hatab, that hub of Ali eats away the sayyi'at, the same way the fire burns away anything that comes in its way, especially the wood. The four aspects of Ali are beneficial to you. I don't have a great deal of time, but I want to get this out tonight. One, the wujud khariji of Ali. When he was alive in the time of Rasulullah, up until his apparent shahadat in the 40th year after Hijrah, Ali ibn Abi Talib's physical presence was beneficial and nothing but benefit. Ali slept in the bed of Rasulullah so that Rasulullah would be protected. Ali fought in all of those battles so that Islam will be protected. Ali did all of those things that he attained, and the shahadat at the end. All of the things that Ali did physically when he was present were beneficial. I might not be able to get to all four of them, because if I do, I might not do justice with them, so I'll put it away. I'll just mention the first aspect of Amirul Mu'mineen. That Ali's wujud khariji, Ali का जो khariji wujud है, वो फ़ायदेमंद है. उस ज़माने में भी फ़ायदेमंद था. आप कहेंगे आज भी फ़ायदेमंद है कि नहीं है? सवाल तो ये है. उस ज़माने में तो था. अली इब्न अबी तालिब जहाँ जाते थे लोगों को फ़ायदा पहुँचाते थे. बल्कि अली ने जो कुएँ खोदे थे, 25 साल जो साइलेंस में अली ने गुजारे, वो आज तक लोगों को फ़ायदा पहुँचा रहे हैं. लेकिन क्या वफ़ात के बाद, शहादत के बाद भी अली फ़ायदेमंद हैं? बेशक, यही अक़ीदा है हमारा. इतने वाक़यात हैं, शायद ये वाक़या आपके सामने पढ़ा हो, तकरार के लिए माज़रत, कि एक शख्स बेनाम यूसुफ़ چونکہ آپ لوگ میں سے بہت سارے لوگ اس جگہ سے ہیں تو اس لیے واقعہ بھی آپ لوگوں سے قریب ہے۔ ایک شخص بنام یوسف جو نجف اشرف میں طالب علم تھا، یہ واقعہ بزرگوار جعفر مزاری نے اپنی کتاب میں لکھا ہے۔ کہتے ہیں کہ وہ آیا امام علی کے حرم میں نجف میں اور گڑ گڑا کے اس نے التجا کی، مولا اتنا خوبصورت فانوس، مہنگا فانوس آپ کے یہاں لگا ہوا ہے، آپ کی زری سونے اور چاندی سے بنی ہوئی ہے، آپ کو ان چیزوں کی ضرورت نہیں، میرے حال پہ کچھ رحم کیجئے، میرے پاس رہنے کے لیے کچھ نہیں، کھانے پینے کے لیے کچھ نہیں، میں چاہتا ہوں شادی کر لوں، یہ سارے ساز و سامان کے لیے کچھ نہیں، ذرا لطف کرم مجھ پہ بھی کیجئے۔ دعا مانگتے ہیں لوگ، ہر طرح کے لوگ آتے ہیں حرم میں دعا مانگنے کے لیے، ہم اور آپ بھی جاتے ہیں، یہی گڑ گڑا کے دعائیں مانگ رہے ہوتے ہیں، خدا کہ اے علی ہمیں یہ چاہیے، اے علی ہمیں یہ چاہیے، اے علی ہمیں چاہیے، اور ہماری دعائیں پوری ہو جاتی ہیں کیونکہ ہم واسطے کے قائل ہیں، اس واسطے سے مانگیں گے تو جلدی ملے گا۔ وہ شخص گیا، سو جاتا ہے، خواب میں دیکھتا ہے امیر المؤمنین آگے کہتے ہیں کہ اگر تم کو اس نجف کی مجاورت چاہیے، یہی اس شہر میں ہی بسنا ہے، علم و دانش چاہیے تمہیں، تو اسی غربت میں رہنا پڑے گا، لیکن ہاں اگر تم رفاہ چاہتے ہو، مال و زر چاہتے ہو، تو ہاں کوچ کر کے ہندوستان چلے جاؤ۔ وہ اڑ جاتا ہے، اگلے دن پھر آتا ہے امام کی بارگاہ میں، کہتا مولا میرے پاس نجف سے کربلا جانے کے پیسے نہیں ہیں، آپ کہہ رہے میں ہندوستان چلا جاؤں، میری حالت پر رحم کیجئے، مجھ کو کچھ عطا کیجئے غیب سے۔ پھر کہتا ہے میں نے خواب میں دیکھا، امیر المؤمنین آئے، کہتے ہیں اگر نجف کی مجاورت چاہیے، ہمارا جو ہے وہ یہاں پہ غلام بن کے رہنا ہے، علم و دانش چاہیے، تو یہی حالت رہے گی تمہاری، جو اکثر طالب علموں کی حالت ہوتی ہے، آپ لوگوں نے دیکھی ہوئی ہے۔ ہاں لیکن اگر تمہیں رفاہ چاہیے، مال و زر چاہیے، تو جاؤ کوچ کرو جیسے میں نے کہا تھا۔ اب وہ سیریس ہو جاتا ہے، کہتا ہے کچھ نہ کچھ تو ہے اس میں بات، اور امام نے اس کو ایک جملہ بھی سکھا دیا، جاؤ فلاں جگہ، ہندوستان میں فلاں جگہ پہنچو، ڈائریکٹ ایگزیکٹ ایڈریس بھی بتایا، اور وہاں جا کے دروازہ کھٹکھٹاؤ، اور دروازہ کھٹکھٹا کے یہ جملہ کہنا، بے آسمان رود و کار آفتاب کند، کہ بے آسمان پہ پہنچے اور وہ کام کرے کہ جو سورج کرتا ہے۔ یہ فارسی کا جملہ سکھایا، یہ شخص اب تک دو میں لگ جاتا ہے۔ یہاں میں صرف اور صرف یہ پروف کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں کہ اگر انسان صدق دل سے طلب کرے تو یہ ہستیاں ابھی بھی آپ کی مدد کرتی ہیں۔ یہ اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ نے، یہ ہمارا عقیدہ بھی ہے، اور یہ اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ نے ان کو، یہ ان کی ذات کے اندر یہ چیز موجود ہے۔ اور ویسے بھی ہمارا تو یقین یہ ہے کہ وہ لوگ وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ، کہ جو خدا کی راہ میں مر جائے، شہید کر دیا جائے، وہ مردہ نہیں ہے بلکہ وہ زندہ ہے۔ تو یہ عقیدہ باطل جو وہابیوں کا عقیدہ ہے، اس سے ہمارا کوئی لینا دینا نہیں ہے، نہیں، یہ حیات ہیں، یہ موجود ہیں اور یہ کمک کر سکتی ہیں۔ تو بہرحال اس شخص نے ساز و سامان جوڑا، پیسے مانگے، کسی طریقے سے ہندوستان پہنچا، اس جگہ پہنچا جہاں کی نشاندہی کی گئی تھی، اس دروازے پہ پہنچا، کھٹکھٹایا، کوئی اندر نہیں آنے دے رہا تھا، اس نے دروازے کے باہر سے چیخ کے کہا بے آسمان رود و کار آفتاب کند۔ فوراً اس گھر کا مالک آتا ہے، دروازہ کھولتا ہے، بڑے احترام کے ساتھ اس کو اندر لے کے آتا ہے، کہتا ہے اس کی بہت خیال رکھنا، اس کو جو چیز چاہیے وہ دینا۔ بہت مزے سے ایک دو دن گزارے، اس کے بعد سے کہا ایک بڑا ایوان سجایا گیا، لوگوں کو، شرفاء کو بلایا گیا، بڑے بڑے اصحاب اس جگہ کے موجود تھے ادھر، اور نوٹیبل پرسنالٹیز موجود تھیں، ان کے درمیان اس شخص کو بلا کے اپنے پاس بٹھایا۔ ابھی تک اس کو پتہ نہیں ہے کہ اس کے ساتھ یہ سب کچھ کیوں ہو رہا ہے۔ ہاں خواب تھا کہ جس میں امیر المؤمنین نے نشاندہی کی تھی کہ یہاں چلے جانا اگر تمہیں رفاہ چاہیے۔ وہ صاحب اٹھتے ہیں، کہتے ہیں کہ میں اعلان کرتا ہوں یہ شخص جس کا نام یوسف ہے، اس کی میں شادی اپنی بیٹی سے کرتا ہوں اور اپنی آدھی جائیداد اس کے نام کرتا ہوں۔ رفاہ چاہیے تھا نا، مال و زر چاہیے تھا نا، ہاں شادی کی بھی ریکویسٹ کی تھی، ساری کے ساری چیزیں امیر المؤمنین نے تمہاری پوری کر دیں۔ ابھی پریشان ہے صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم، لیکن عقدہ نہیں کھولا ہے، پریشانی ہے ابھی کہ کیوں یہ سب ہو رہا ہے۔ پوچھا بھئی کیا کیا اس شخص نے، تم تو جانتے بھی نہیں ہو، یوسف نامی شخص نجف سے اٹھ کے آ گیا اور اس کو تم نے جو اپنی بیٹی سے شادی بھی کروا دی اور اس کو جو تم نے سب کچھ دے دیا، ایسا کیا کیا اس نے؟ کہا ایک عرصے سے میں نے ایک شعر کہا تھا اور بہت لوگوں سے پوچھا کہ اس شعر کو مکمل کیسا کروں، دوسرا مصرع ذہن میں نہیں آ رہا تھا، اور میں کافی عرصے سے تگودو میں تھا کہ وہ دوسرا مصرع کسی طریقے سے مل جائے. چونکہ شعر فارسی میں تھا، بہت سارے لوگوں کو میں نے دعوت دی کہ آئیں، وہ آ کے جو ہے مجھے اس دوسرے مصرعے کو بتا دیں، لیکن وہ لوگ مجھے نہیں بتا پائے. میں نے ایران تک کے لوگوں کو بلایا، لیکن وہ بھی کچھ نہ کر پائے. کچھ نے مجھے دوسرا مصرع بتایا، مگر وہ اگر اس کی زمین یا اس کا وزن اور قافیہ صحیح تھا تو معنی صحیح نہیں تھے. بہرحال مجھے لگا کہ شاید وہ شعر جو میں نے مولا کی بارگاہ میں کہا تھا وہ شاید قبولیت کی منزل پہ نہیں پہنچا، لہٰذا اس کو چھوڑ دو. یہاں تک کہ 2 دن پہلے یہ شخص آیا اور اس نے آ کے اس شعر کو مکمل کر دیا. یہ صرف اور صرف غیب سے ہی ہو سکتا ہے، چونکہ میں نے دعا کی تھی مولا کی بارگاہ میں کہ میں نے یہ شعر کہا ہے، شاید آپ کی بارگاہ میں یہ مقبول نہیں ہوا. مولا نے اس شعر کو خود مکمل کر دیا. کہا کیا تھا شعر؟ کہا شعر یہ تھا، بے ذرے گر نظر لطف کند بوتراب کند، کہ اگر کسی ذرے کے اوپر بوتراب اپنی نگاہ ڈالیں، اس کے بعد سے دوسرا مصرع نہیں مل رہا تھا. یہاں تک کہ یوسف آتا ہے اور آ کے کہتا ہے بے ذرے گر نظر لطف بوتراب کند بے آسمان رود وقار آفتاب کند، کہ علی اگر کسی ذرے کے اوپر، کسی چیز کے اوپر اپنی نظر لطف کریں گے تو اس کو یہ بلندی ملے گی کہ وہ آسمان پہ پہنچ جائے گا اور وہ کام کرے گا جو آفتاب کرتا ہے، سورج کرتا ہے. صلوات بھیجی محمد والے محمد پر. بذر گر نظر لطف بوتراب کند بے آسمان رود وقار آفتاب کند. تو ابھی بھی یہ ہستیاں عطا کرتی ہیں اور اس پہ کوئی شک نہیں ہے. وقت میں اب گنجائش نہیں ہے. صرف جو آج کا خلاصہ تھا کہ میں نے آپ کے سامنے لفظ الہ کی تشریح کی، لفظ رب اور ربوبیت کو بتایا. کبھی بھی کوئی معاملہ اختلاف الہ کے اوپر نہیں تھا، اختلاف رہا تو ربوبیت کے اوپر رہا. اور کس طریقے سے معصومین نے ہر منزل پہ، ہر مرحلے پہ اس ربوبیت کو اپنے آپ سے دور کیا کہ رب صرف فقط اللہ ہے. اگر کسی کو رب کہلانے کا حق ہے تو وہ ذات باری تعالی ہے. لہٰذا اسی کی خاطر وہ قربانیاں دی ہیں. یہی مذہب، یہی دین جس کی خاطر میں نے کل بھی کہا تھا کہ اگر حسین جیسی شخصیت، وہ حسین کہ جس کے لیے وہ فضائل ملتے ہیں کہ جو کسی کے لیے نہیں ملتے، اگر وہ حسین کسی چیز پہ اپنے آپ کو قربان کر دے تو بتائیے اس چیز کی کیا منزلت ہوگی. اگر حسین آ کے اپنی جان دیتے ہیں اس دین کی خاطر تو اس دین کی کیا منزلت ہوگی. ہاں، لیکن حسین کے ساتھ اور بھی لوگ ہیں. ایک شخصیت جو امام حسین کے ساتھ موجود ہے اس کا نام ہے قمر بنی ہاشم. یعنی اگر بنو ہاشم میں آپ کو جمال، کمال، یہ ساری چیزیں کہیں دیکھنی تھیں تو ہر شخص جمال اور کمال کا حقدار تھا اور اس کے پاس تھیں. حضرت علی اکبر کہیں سے گزرتے تھے تو وہ جو کہ ہم شکل پیغمبر. لیکن ان تمام جمال اور کمال رکھنے والوں میں اگر کسی کو یہ ٹائٹل ملا تو وہ حضرت عباس کو یہ ٹائٹل ملا. ان کو کہا گیا قمر بنو ہاشم. یعنی وہ جو کہ بنو ہاشم میں جتنا جمال اور کمال ہے، اگر ان میں بھی کوئی چمکتا ہے، ان میں بھی کوئی چاند ہے تو وہ عباس کی ذات گرامی ہے. بس زیادہ مصائب نہیں پڑھنے آج کی شب. حضرت عباس کے حوالے سے انشاءاللہ شب جو آئے گی حضرت عباس کے حوالے سے، اس میں مفصل طریقے سے حضرت عباس کے مصائب پیش کروں گا. لیکن چونکہ آج خواہش تھی لہٰذا اس حوالے سے کچھ معروضات آپ کے سامنے پیش کرتا چلوں کہ وہ کون عباس ہیں. 14 سال کی سن ہے کہ جب والد گرامی کا انتقال ہو جاتا ہے، شہادت ہو جاتی ہے. 10 سال مزید امام حسن کے زیر تربیت رہتے ہیں. پھر 10 سال امام حسین کی خدمت میں گزارے. گویا 34 سال کا سن ہے حضرت عباس کا، اور کربلا میں موجود ہیں اس جاہ و حشم کے ساتھ. کیوں؟ اس لیے کہ علم بردار ہیں. آج جو علم اٹھائے جاتے ہیں اس کی نسبت حضرت عباس سے ہے. کیوں؟ حضرت عباس نے علم کا بھرم رکھا. حضرت عباس کے بہت سے ٹائٹلز ہیں، ان میں سے ایک ٹائٹل حضرت عباس کا قمر بنی ہاشم ہے. حضرت عباس کو ابو القربہ بھی کہتے ہیں. قربہ عربی میں مشق کو کہا جاتا ہے. مشق کا باپ حضرت عباس کو وہ ٹائٹل بھی مل گیا. اس لیے کہ یہ حضرت عباس ہی تھے کہ جب انہوں نے اذن جہاد طلب کیا امام سے تو امام نے ایک دفعہ جواب دیا کہ اے عباس تم تو صاحب لواء ہو، تم تو میرے لشکر کے سردار ہو، تمہیں سپاہ کے سردار ہو، تم کو کیسے جانے کی اجازت دے دی جائے؟ امام کی طرف دیکھا عباس نے اور پلٹ کے ایک دفعہ اشارہ کیا، مولا وہ سپاہی کہاں کہ جس کا میں سالار تھا، اب اس میں سے کوئی نہیں بچا، ایک ایک کر کے سب شہید ہو گئے، ارے سارے اصحاب شہید ہو گئے، گھر والے سارے شہید ہو گئے، مولا اب میرے اور آپ کے علاوہ کوئی نہیں بچا ہے۔ امام نے کہا ہے عباس اگر تمہارا اتنا ہی من ہے جانے کا مقتل کی جانب، لیکن اس سے پہلے تم جاؤ، یہ الاتش کی آواز بلند ہوتی ہے، بچوں کی پیاس بجھا دو۔ عباس نے سوچ لیا کہ مقتل میں جانے کا ایک ہی طریقہ ہے، بچوں کی پیاس کو بجھا دو۔ ابو القربہ کہتے ہیں عباس نے مشکیزہ لیا، آگے سکینہ کو دلاسا دلایا، ننھی سکینہ تمام بچوں کو اکٹھا کیا۔ ارے یہ وہ با وفا چچا ہے کہ جب بھی وعدہ کرتا ہے تو پورا کرتا ہے۔ بس حضرت عباس چلے ہیں، ابو الفضل عباس کس طریقے سے پہنچے فرات پہ، پانی کو بھرا، واپس نکلے، لیکن اشقیاء نہیں چاہتے، یہ پانی اگر پہنچ گیا تو گویا ہماری شکست ہے، ابھی پانی کو روکنا ہے، جس طریقے سے ہو سکے حملہ کرو۔ ارے دائیں بازو کو قطع کیا، بائیں ہاتھ کو منقطع کیا، عباس علم کو تھا میں علم نہیں گرنے دینا، اور مشکیزے کو سنبھالا، لیکن ایسا تیر جفا آیا، مشکیزے میں بےبس ہوا، پانی بہ گیا، پانی کے ساتھ عباس کی امنگیں، عباس کی آس بھی رہ گئی۔ وہیں پہ گر کے ایک دفعہ مولا کو پکارا، امام کھڑے ہوئے، اعلان انکسر ظہری، ارے عباس میری کمر ٹوٹ گئی، آتے ہیں مولا۔ پوچھا عباس، عباس نے کہا مولا میرے لاشے کو، میرے جسد کو خیمہ گاہ نہ لے جائیے گا۔ امام جوگ بھی گاتا تھا، اس کے لاشے کو خیمہ لے جاتے تھے، کہا میرے جسم کو، میرے لاشے کو خیمہ نہ لے کے جائیے گا، اس لیے کہ میں کس طریقے سے ننھی سکینہ سے روبرو ہوں گا۔ ماتم حسین، یا حسین۔